views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Coming up on this special edition of Today's Verdict, we focus on the legal documents you need to have on hand to protect yourself during the pandemic. Although we don't want to think about it, the coronavirus has made all of us realize that life is unpredictable, and sadly, we must prepare for the worst. We have several guests on to guide us so you know what the plan is if things go south fast. And if you are a teenager heading off to college or preparing this year for higher education, you will absolutely want to hear what our experts have to say about preparing yourself legally and mentally for a challenging year ahead. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. We are here with Lara Sass, and we're continuing really talking about trust in estates. So important during this time. It's a tough subject to talk about. Lara, let me ask you a question. First of all, thanks for being here. It's a tough subject, certainly when things are going well, getting people to really understand their mortality and fill out certain documents, including a will.
Yes.
Tell me your experience through the pandemic. Do you find people a little bit more receptive to actually discussing these types of issues?
Oh, absolutely. For me, typically as a trust and estates attorney, my biggest barrier to getting clients to come to the table is facing their mortality. In this case, coronavirus poses an imminent threat, which is really difficult for people to ignore. So I find that clients are much more amenable to taking action now than they otherwise normally would be.
What type of calls are you getting? Are the healthcare proxies, the living wills? Where's that one, Miss Sass, you got to help me here. I'm really nervous. What's that frantic phone call that you're getting?
Yeah, I mean, the frantic phone call is, I'm so nervous if I end up in the hospital. Who's making medical decisions? Who's handling my finances? So it's really what I call those ancillary documents of like, who's the agent that's making the decisions for them if they're hooked up to a machine and they can't act on their own.
So what do you do? I mean, I know it's hard. Notaries are tough to get a hold of. Signatures, we got to talk about that. What do you do when, let's say it was myself and I'm a little nervous, I have a pre-existing condition, I have a child. Yeah. I call you up, I'm like, okay, let's get something going here because I'm not feeling so good right now.
Yeah.
How does that work, you and I?
Yeah. So really, we've been doing as much as we can remotely. People don't want to step into a lawyer's office right now. They want to handle as much as they can from home. Before COVID, statutes in New York and elsewhere stated that you had to sign documents in the presence of two witnesses and/or a notary public. And so how do you get that during a pandemic? How do you get it during quarantine or when there are social distancing requirements? And so here in New York, Cuomo introduced an executive order that allowed for both remote notarization and remote witnessing. He's extended that for several months now. It's still in effect. And so we're able to do everything remotely, from meeting with clients via Zoom calls, getting documents to them through our online portal, having them review it, and then signing everything remotely.
Do you need to file those documents in court, whether it's surrogate's court or anywhere else, or can you basically just hold off on that for now?
No. So you never really have to file any of that during someone's life. And so especially now, no, I have actually my clients handle all of their original documents, keep them in a safe or in a drawer in their apartments. And I take copies of everything. I keep it securely on my cloud and sort of that's it.
So Lara, what do you recommend? If someone's watching, I mean, what are the documents that you're saying at this point, you got to see me, this is what you got to get? Tell me.
Yeah. So basically, it's a will, healthcare proxy, power of attorney, living will. A will states what happens to your assets at death. You name guardians if you have minor children. You name fiduciaries called an executor who is responsible for handling your estate at death. If you don't have a will in place or a revocable trust, which actually gets you out of the probate process, then the state decides what happens to your assets. Those beneficiaries under state law may not be the people who'd otherwise want assets passing to. So will is critically important to have in place. And then a healthcare proxy, you name an agent to make medical decisions for you in the event that you're unable to do that yourself. With a power of attorney, you name an agent to make financial decisions for you if you're unable to do that yourself.
Are you doing any estate planning as well, letting those who come in know the best way to prepare their estate so financially their heirs are protected?
Yeah, 100%. So we always do an intake at the beginning. I get an understanding of what does their family situation look like? What do their assets look like? And then we sort of plan, do we have estate tax considerations, income tax worries? And we plan holistically. For most of my core business is high net worth planning, but we've expanded it through what's called remoteestateplan.com, where we're able to do planning for anybody regardless of wealth. And again, it's all done remotely and online, so it makes it a lot easier today.
Okay, Lara, let's talk a little bit of a touchy subject, and that's loans to family members.
Yes.
Which unfortunately, we're all either part of it or we're either the one asking, we're the one loaning. You know, it's just the nature of the beast here. Tell me, how do you deal with this type of situation?
So excellent question, because right now we have historic lows in terms of interest rates. I mean, some of the interest rates that we have on these vehicles are the lowest I've seen in my 20 plus years of practice. And so it actually is a really good time to make intra-family loans from an estate planning perspective. But it also offers other benefits. So there are no credit checks or reporting, obviously, when you're loaning to family members. There are no loan costs. And often the person who's lending the money to loved ones, they're getting a better return on these interest rates than they can with cash sitting in a bank account that makes nothing.
Wow. I mean, it's just the conversation itself is just hard to just even imagine, but I guess.
I know.
It really happens. All right, some final tips. We don't have too much time. Somebody's watching, right? And they're a little bit uneasy. Is there a particular document that they should be hitting before any other documents? Do they get it all packaged together? Do you maybe have a website or something else that you have that makes it even easier for them? Tell me what you got there.
Yeah, I mean, healthcare proxy, power of attorney, living will, which I had mentioned earlier, so critically important. You know, people are ending up in hospitals quickly. You know, if God forbid it really goes downhill, you're being intubated. So you want someone there who can make medical decisions if you're unable to do so and handle your finances. I have the website I mentioned, remoteestateplan.com. Everything can be done super quickly, inexpensively, and it's really important to get documents in place.
Okay, one final question, because this has been on my mind with this whole thing. In terms of any type of liability, have you come across any kind of issues where any type of people are bringing actions against somebody else because of this pandemic, or, you know, not acting on my behalf when you should have, acting improperly on my behalf? You know, have you found any of this at all?
I thankfully, I have not come across that in my own practice, but I've heard a lot of mumblings of it myself. And, you know, also with this remote witnessing, you're a bit at risk. Does the person have capacity to sign these documents? Were they signed correctly? If there's no attorney present, is that an issue? So yeah, there are mumblings that there's problems with estate planning during the pandemic.
All right, Lara, Sass, all good stuff. I know it's a difficult time for all of us. Hopefully the next time we meet, maybe it'll be in the studio. I got, you know, big crew, lots of cameras, not just my kitchen. Okay?
Yeah.
And listen, you know, really great stuff. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's my pleasure. All right, we'll be back with more Today's Verdict. Stay with us right after this. My personal pleasure to actually have a good friend of mine, Leslie Camins, on with a new person who I've never met, who I'm excited to meet. That's Kim Gronich. Two lovely ladies have got into a certain area of the law that I know the viewers have been looking at, and that's really protecting teenagers once they come of age in terms of legal documents. And Leslie, first of all, congratulations on the type of work you're doing. Tell me, what made you decide to go into this kind of work?
Thanks, David. It's great to be here. Kim and I have been friends for a long time. We're both attorneys, and we both were working in the courts for the past 20 years. And with COVID, we both lost our ability to go to court. And in having conversation with each other, we came up with this idea that there's a whole population that isn't being represented with legal documents, and that's the young adult. We spoke about it. Between Kim and I, we have 5 children between the ages of 18 and 22. So we're very familiar with this population. I have a son that just graduated from college, twin girls in college, and Kim has 2 girls in college right now. So we've been through the process from college application, through going to college, and now living in a dorm or living off campus.
Let's set the stage here. So, you have, listen, my son's 10. I'm in total control, but certainly by the time he's about 16 or 17, he's starting to apply to college. He gets in, still technically a minor, but boom, he's 18 years old. Tell me, what type of documents does a child who's now really an adult need once they're really, could even be the senior year of high school? What type of documents do they need?
So we have what we're offering in our plan, and what is so critical that a young adult at the age of 18 needs we are including 3 important documents. The first one is what's known as the HIPAA Authorization, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, that was enacted in 1996 by the federal government, now makes all of these protected health documents private, and you cannot access this once your child turns 18. A lot of people don't know this. As the parent, you're still responsible for paying their medical bills as well as all of their other bills. Even though you're paying those bills, you do not have access to that information unless they consent. Their consent is usually given as a matter of course. However, in that unlikely possibility where there's a terrible accident or something happens and your child is now incapacitated, they are unable to give consent to the doctor, to the emergency treating physician. You have a HIPAA authorization, which will permit and authorize that doctor to speak to you. Without that document, that doctor cannot release information about your child's condition.
So if, like, let's say this particular individual is back at school at this point, and obviously 18 in college, and if something happens, God forbid, happens up there, does the college need the HIPAA? Does the school nurse use the HIPAA? Is that how it works? And then you can find out exactly what happened. Is that what we're really talking about here?
Well, at Teen Estate Planning, we have a philosophy of wearing the belt and suspenders. We like to have the documents that cover you in all of these aspects. So HIPAA is a federal regulation. So the HIPAA authorization, when you're in college, the parents would have possession of that HIPAA authorization. They can present it to the healthcare provider, and it enables them to speak to the healthcare provider. It's most important to remember that these documents that we're providing are always in the unlikely circumstance that your child cannot give verbal consent. If your child can give verbal consent, you can speak.
Sure.
So through Teen Estate Planning, once we complete a whole program with somebody, they are given this document. We teach them how to store it, where to keep it, who to present it to. And it's not only for kids that are traveling to college. Anytime, we have several clients who have children living in Manhattan. It's when you don't have any, but you need somebody to protect you as your agent in the unlikely circumstance you cannot protect yourself. So that's what all these documents are. And
which leads me, by the way, to the power of attorney. So, that is almost another really facet that a parent could use to find things out, or to at least use it to protect their child. Tell me how that works and how you would make it or put it part of the package. Kim, go ahead.
Yes, so we include the power of attorney as part of our package, and we say, well, we're skipping over the other document that we like to talk about that goes hand in hand with the HIPAA, which is the medical healthcare proxy, which is also included. We say that medical healthcare proxy allows the agent who's designated by the child who's now a young adult, to act in the shoes of the child for medical purposes, make decisions that are related to their medical health. And the financial power of attorney allows the agent to make financial decisions for their...
So what you're talking about really is the HIPAA lets you get the records, so the proxy lets you act on behalf of the child, and then the power of attorney, let's get into that. That kind of gives you some of the financial abilities as well?
Sure. So that is going to allow you to get into banking information, allow you to deal with a lease agreement that your child may have entered if they're living off campus and they need to deal with their landlord, if they have any type of insurance related to their residence. They have sometimes a renter's insurance policy, those other types of things. Some children are now becoming, they're living out of their parents' home, and they may own their own apartment in their name in that state. So you would need a financial power of attorney, maybe to possibly execute tax returns or other type of financial documents.
Now, we were skipping over this, but would they have to be 18 to execute these documents? Or could they do it when they're 16 or 17? Or basically, we have to wait till they're of age and they're of consent. Am I correct?
Yes. So you only need the HIPAA authorization when the child turns 18, because before that, you do have, as the parent, the right. The doctor can speak to you. There is no requirement preventing them from doing it.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Now you're 18 and you have the parent in the office and you have the child in the office. How does it work? How's that discussion really come out so that the child says, well, wait a second, I don't want you making my medical decisions, or, you know, my money's my money, or tell me the dynamics. That's probably got to be pretty interesting.
Well, the way that we work is that we speak to them before they come into the office. So we have a conversation, we have an intake where we speak to the agent or the parent and the child. And it's a hard conversation to have. I think the hardest conversations we have, not so much about the financial stuff, because I think most of the people are familiar or are comfortable with their parents. They've been taking care of them. They've been involved in their finances. The health issues are also, that's, I think, for me, where I have the most discomfort. Because in the healthcare proxy, you're asking a young person to think about organ donation. You're asking them to think about life-sustaining or life-ending measures. The healthcare proxy, especially for a young person, we recommend that you give your agent a broad authority to make those decisions. There are some young people that have very passionate feelings about life-ending or life-sustaining measures, and that's where the conversation gets uncomfortable. So a lot of times we have the conversation, we do it over the phone so that the parent and the child could have those conversations privately and then come back to us and say,
they're all set.
So much. We really had a great conversation, and these are my child's wishes. And it's an interesting conversation for everybody to have.
And to the point of the control factor, the medical proxy is only going to come into effect when the child is incapacitated and unable to make decisions. Yeah. Up until that point, the medical decisions the child will be able to make completely on their own, and nobody will impact them. And with respect to the financial power of attorney, you can make it effective only upon incapacitation. But our clients so far have all wanted their parents to have it immediately, because they have relied on them to this point and they have a trusting relationship. We haven't yet seen the client that has been averse to that.
Let's talk budgets. Are there budgets that you create for the family that you can help them manage their money? I know young people, sometimes they get a little overwhelmed. How does that work?
Well, part of what we do with our service, when the client comes in for the execution of the documents, besides just signing the documents, witnessing, notarizing, we go through a life plan for independence for these young people. So we talk about budgeting, and a lot of the kids are unaware of all of the extra things that come into play when you go off to college. Whether you're living on campus or off campus, how to budget for food. And we have a spreadsheet that we offer as advice to the young person and to the parent, because sometimes the parent has an uncomfortable time talking about the budgeting with the child. So they're a little bit more comfortable talking to us about it, or just opening up that thought process. And in addition to the budgeting, we also provide financial responsibility to the child, about being savvy with credit, about opening up your own credit card and having your bank accounts linked to your parents, and managing security with respect to passwords and identification. We talk about Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say we're gonna get all your contact information on there, so everybody can definitely get to you. That's website and that's phone number. But let me ask you, Kim, final tips. Somebody's watching today. They have a child, 18, 19. They're a little nervous. Virus is around. They want to protect. What advice would you give them?
We would say call us and we will be there for you. We will answer your questions and we will help you prepare these documents. You need
not to be afraid to have the conversation. These are tough conversations to have, certainly now. Listen, I want to thank both of you for coming on. I expect you on in the next couple of months, hopefully. And in the meantime, you guys stay safe.
Thanks.
You too. Great to meet you.
My pleasure. All right, we'll be back with more Today's Verdict right after this. We are here with Krystal Diaz, college bridge coach, Bronx Theater High School, and Janice Bloom, the co-director of College Access, Research and Action, also known as CARE, C-A-R-E. First of all, I want to thank both of you for being here. I'm going to start with you, Krystal. Okay, how are you doing through this whole pandemic? Kind of scary, but how are you getting through it?
Well, first off, thank you for having me, David. This pandemic has definitely been scary, not just from a student point of view or a coach point of view, just from a human being point of view. I guess everyone, whenever they have to deal with the unknown and kind of the uncertainty of the entire world, it's pretty scary, but staying productive, I'm hanging in there, trying to stay cool right now.
I hear it. It's hot out there. Let's talk a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about you, at least academically.
Okay, so I was born and raised in the Bronx, and I went to Bronx Theater High School, and I graduated, went to BMCC and got my associates in communications, and I currently attend Hunter College, and I am in the process of getting my BA in English.
All right, as a college student, by the way, my mother went to Hunter, big fan of Hunter College. I only live about 4 blocks away. Let me ask you something. Now that we're in a completely different environment, certainly we have people who are going back to school, some of them, you know, as freshmen to sophomores, and some are going from high school right as freshmen. How is the experience going to change, in your opinion?
In my opinion, there is no set plan anymore for how things are going to go in the fall for students, or how things are going now for students who are taking summer classes. We still don't really know if all classes are going to be remote or if some classes are going to be remote. And a lot of students have a lot of questions on, well, if I'm going away to college, how is that going to work? Are dorms going to be open? Are dorms not going to be open? So right now it's a lot of, I guess, guessing and trying to get these answers for students, but also trying to push the students to take the initiative to get answers for themselves and to make the right choices for themselves.
Well, what is the general feeling from at least your friends? Does it seem like they're comfortable going back to class? They'd like to just do online learning, or they want a combination of both? What seems to be the discussion among your peers?
The consensus is really, I think, if classes have been remote and there's a chance that they may stay remote, it's better that they are just remote, in my opinion, because if, you know, we're still opening up in phases, not everything is opening back up right now, going back to school, especially in the city where you rely a lot on public transportation and being around crowds of people, it's a little more difficult and a little more safe cautious. So I think remote is probably the best way to go.
And what would you say socially? What do you think is going to happen? I know we've seen some areas of the city that have blown up in terms of parties, others that have been really doing the social distancing. What do you think is going to happen once college is back in session? I mean this is a Hunter commuter school, but still, what do you think? Do you think there's still going to be Thursday happy hours, Friday night, let's all get together? Like, what do you feel is going to happen when the fall starts?
I mean, socially, it's all about adjusting, right? Same way we had to this summer and the same way that we've been having to for the past few months. You know, a lot of social hours and hanging out and happy hours have to be either online on a video call, or we're going out somewhere, it has to be, you know, outside, trying our best to social distance and, you know, see our peers, but also do it safely to the point where we don't risk kind of halting opening up right now and we just keep progressing forward.
All right, let's talk services. What kinds of things can you do, or can an organization do to help those who are really transitioning from high school to college? Tell me the kinds of things that are available.
So, of course, with everything happening, there's this thing called summer melt that high school students naturally go to regardless, where the summer happens after high school and they're kind of like, oh, I can chill now, when in reality they have to finish up all these things for college, like financial aid and housing papers and things like that. And with everything so uncertain, it's a little harder. So what I've been trying to enforce in my students and students in general is to keep open conversations with whoever you can on campus, because getting in verification forms, for example, is like significantly harder now because we don't know who's in the office. We don't know who's answering the phones. A lot of the times no one's answering the phones. So it's a lot of persistence and pestering. And if this person's not answering the phone, email this person. If this person's not answering, try to get connected through this person. And it's a lot of that.
Is there a particular website somebody can go to kind of help out, or any particular phone calls that they should make to certain particular places, or they should just be doing their research on their own?
I'm not too sure. Like I said, everything right now is very touch and go. I know for services in the fall, I believe if you go to cuny.edu, there is a service that offers students to borrow laptops and tablets so that they can continue remote learning. But as far as everything else, it's all touch and go and whoever you can contact.
Financially, a lot of people are hurting now for many, many reasons. Either they've lost their job, their parents don't have the jobs. What have you heard in terms of being able to get any kind of financial assistance for school or books or anything?
So as far as financial assistance goes, I know there's kind of been a backup in like financial aid and TAP and everything because people are out of office. But I know that a lot of schools, especially CUNY, have become sort of lax, like cutting people some slack with their financial needs. So if a student has to do a payment plan, then they're eligible to do so a little earlier on. Or if a student, like for example, I know community college for offers ASAP and things like that, programs like that offer stipends for books and everything. So I always try to encourage them, like try to find a program that works for you financially and even academically, because I know those programs sometimes come with advisors, which is always so good, even though again, we're all kind of guessing right now.
Well, Krystal, these are scary times. Good luck in school. I know you got a lot coming up, and hopefully we'll have you back, maybe in studio. You can tell us how the semester was. If we could all get back into the studio, we'll see. But thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it here.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Okay, we'll be back with more Today's Verdict right after this. Well, that's all we have for our show today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and of course you, the viewers, for watching. If you have any questions about today's show or would like to see a future topic discussed, please email me at davidlesch@bronxnet.org. From all of us at Today's Verdict, know your issues, reach a verdict, learn the law. See you next time.